So, I was reflecting on what to focus on this week, and good old Huberman Lab had an interesting talk. I think it's a good one. It might provide some neuroscience behind what we're doing. But there's a recent episode where he interviews Richie Davidson, who he's famous for doing a lot of the neuroscience around mindfulness meditation and seeing, what monks' brains look like under fMRI imaging versus everyone else's, and kind of looking at the state of mindfulness, which is like when we meditate, we kind of enter a state. There's also a trait of it. And kind of seeing how, traits are things that are stable over time, that kind of are part of who we are, and just seeing how these kind of can, over time, kind of coalesce a little bit. And he was talking about just how much benefit even just 5 minutes of mindfulness can do every day. So it's kind of a nice reminder that sometimes we, I don't have enough time, or kind of beat ourselves up over maybe getting a few minutes in. But I think it's a good reminder that it all counts. 2 minutes is better than no minutes. So with that, I thought it was just kind of a neat thing. There's another book that it was reminding me of, which is called Buddha's Brain. And if you're interested in kind of the science behind meditation, that's also a really, I think, easy to read, good resource. But I thought, it'd be kind of fun to talk a little bit about the research, obviously the dedication, more than that, but just kind of touch on some of the things that we're doing and how we're doing. I get into meditation, it's like feed on intellect. So, I think one of the things that kind of stood out to me, especially within listening to Richie talk today, there are a lot of different types of meditations, as we've experienced them here, and they all do slightly different things. One of the things he said is, sometimes as you go through different types of meditations, you might actually find yourself at a meditation where you are doing nothing but being present, focusing on a single thing, but just whatever's here. It's very hard. That's where we'll start there. The closest we get to that is what we call choiceless awareness, which is just kind of letting the mind wander and kind of noticing kind of where it's present and being present with that, and kind of staying grounded in the present. So, but the reason I bring this up is because, one of the things that he kind of focuses on, and I think a lot of the research now is really leading heavily into, is the kind of neural structures that we have that create our default mode network. And so I'm just going to remind us what that is. I know you've probably all heard me say this, but we can use beginner's mind with this. And, no matter how many times I hear it, I don't know, personally, I need to hear it more. So I thought I'd share it. And just to say before that is that, what he talked about is mindfulness is really, from a neuroscience level, a way, and a psychological way, is to drop below that default mode network. It is the way. So on a kind of basic level, default mode network is autopilot. Yeah, it's our autopilot. Autopilot is meant for survival, not for thriving, to survive. Yeah? So you can think about the default mode network as kind of three it does three things. We're responsible for three things. One is creating a sense of self in space. So that usually requires a story, because we don't just go, I am here in space, you know. It's like, I am here on this, you know, on Earth, in Utah, in Salt Lake City. Like, we really get creative with it, right? And we need to have that, like, this sense of space. And we'll talk about why that is. The second thing is searching for danger. So looking for danger to keep this alive. And the third thing is projecting that sense of self into the future. Okay. So let's break this down. So I often like to think about this. The easiest way is, you know, cave people time, cavemen, cave women. So when we think about that, living in the cave, you need a sense of self, so you know, how big am I? As I walk outside, am I bigger than this bear? Am I bigger than a raccoon? Can I reach, you know, this branch to get the stick? Like, we need to have this sense of self, because otherwise we'd just be walking around and like reaching for things, but I may not be able to grab it, or I might hit it because it's like right there, or whatever it is. So we need to have that. We also, again, need to be able to make judgments very quickly, because it's about survival. So then we, you know, in that cave, right, we're searching for danger. We may not know if there is danger or not, but if we have a sense of self, we walk outside, we go, this bear is huge, it's bigger than me, that could be dangerous. It also has claws, that could also be dangerous. We may not actually know until we get attacked by the bear. Who knows? Like, may or may not, and depending on how other people respond to it, we may not see it as a threat. But once we see it as a threat, yeah, this is where the projection of our own story, our sense of self, we project that into the future. Right? Project that into the future so I can plan. So, you know, so that it looks like this. So I just was attacked by a bear. That's really scary. But in order to survive, I also need to go outside and eat, right? So I can't just avoid the bear. So I've created the story of, okay, so I am smaller than the bear. The bear is this awful monstery thing that will hurt me at any moment. You know, who knows what I've created, right? But I'm starting to create the story because I need to have a sense of space and myself and others. I'm searching for danger, so I've identified the bear is the danger. And what comes next? Not only is the bear dangerous, but what do I do in the future to prevent that, right? So now I can go, okay, well, I can get the stick. Maybe the stick can help. I can get other people. We can now plan for that because there's a problem. You know, there's a danger. I've identified it. I've projected into the future, and I have this story. Now, next time, you know, if I'm successful with that stick or the rocks or whatever I'm using, that becomes part of the story, right? Although I'm smaller, I still have, you know, I can use these weapons, and, you know, you can see where that's going. So that's all fine and dandy until we have civilization. When we have civilization, what comes after, you know, you don't necessarily have to be worried about a bear or about others attacking you. I mean, within reason, right? I mean, there certainly are situations in which you need to worry about that, but within, you know, the general framework, there's not a whole lot of that. So what happens, that default mode network that is part of our, you know, millions of years of evolution, well, what is the danger? Yeah? So the danger starts to go this way, and we start to see ourselves as the danger, right? Our emotions, our thoughts, the you know, parts of our body, whatever it is that we see as danger, we then start to feel that that's the problem. Yeah? And when we're in that default mode network, we then view something within ourselves as the problem. We're critical, or you know, really chastising ourselves. It could be chronic pain, parts of our mental health, whatever that might be. We create a story around that, and we project it into the future. Sound like anything? Rumination, right? So basically, we're kind of back to square one, back to rumination. That's what, you know, we're finding with the default mode network. The other thing with the default mode network is it's has a negativity bias. So this is a bias towards seeing things in the negative. Yeah? Again, life or death, this makes sense. We need to see things negatively. Because what's the upside of seeing it positively if a bear's running at you? Well, he might not attack me this time, and then you get smacked, no. You gotta be like, no, that bear will kill me, right? We gotta believe the worst case scenario. So psychologically, what that looks like for us now is catastrophizing. You know what I mean when I say that? Like thinking the worst possible thing in a certain situation is gonna happen. This often happens when we're ruminating. This is gonna be the worst thing, whatever it is. So the interesting part, I think, is that in this interview, the question gets asked to Richie, like, so do you think, like the Dalai Lama, for example, who's meditated his whole life, do you think he still has chaos inside, like all that's still happening, or is he just okay with it all happening in there, And I thought Richie's explanation was, just very simple and understandable, and kind of liked it. It was just, it says, over time, like, it's not a jump, it's not a switch, it's a gradual process. But in the beginning, yeah, there was probably a lot of chaos there. And as he's meditated and felt anchored and centered and, keeps doing that there is